There was a time in my life where I didn't just go into debt once. I went into debt multiple times, and not small amounts. I'm talking tens of thousands of dollars, more than once. And if I'm being honest, that used to be one of the most frustrating parts of my journey. Because it wasn't like I didn't know better. I had already learned the lessons, I had already gotten myself out of debt once, and yet somehow I found myself right back in it again. I can still picture certain seasons of my life so clearly. Being in LA and having access to everything, the malls, the clubs, restaurants, the beach, and just being out all of the time, spending money like it would somehow just work itself out, shopping so often at Art and B in the Glendale Galleria that the manager asked if I wanted to work there. And I said yes, thinking that the discount would help. Yes, that's right. I worked at Art and B. Remember that place? Well, let me just say the discount definitely didn't help. It just made it easier for me to spend more money. I was also opening new credit cards because the old ones were maxed out. I was constantly telling myself I'll figure it out later, and then sitting there looking at thousands of dollars in debt, wondering how things got so bad. And what I really had to sit with, and what I now see so clearly working with clients, is that getting out of debt isn't just about knowing what to do. It's about becoming someone who can stay consistent long enough to actually do it. So, in today's episode, I don't just want to talk about paying off debt. I want to talk about how to stay focused long enough to actually finish the journey. Because motivation comes and goes, but routines are what carry you through. So let's be real. It takes minutes to get into debt. Like literally, right now, like the click of a button can put you in debt. But it can take years to get out of debt. And if your habits, your routines, and your patterns don't support that long term process, you will just constantly find yourself starting over and over and over. That's exactly what happened to me. I had to learn the very hard way that if you don't address the root of your spending, you will just end up right back where you started. And that leads me into the first routine. Routine number one, daily awareness of your spending. One of the biggest patterns I had when I was in debt was complete disconnection. I was not looking at my spending regularly. I was not staying aware of what was happening. And because of that, it was easy to just keep on spending. I remember swiping my card for things and not even really thinking about the total. It was more about the moment, just being out with friends, buying something new, feeling like I was a part of everything that was happening around me, and then completely avoiding looking at my accounts because I already knew it wasn't good. I already knew it wasn't going to be pretty. And this is something I actually see all the time. When you're in debt, it can feel uncomfortable to look at your numbers. So you just avoid them. But that avoidance is really what keeps you stuck. One of the most powerful routines you can build, and this is a routine that I still use to this day, is daily awareness of your spending. So, daily awareness of your spending doesn't have to mean hours and hours of tracking. It doesn't have to mean complicated systems. It's just a quick pulse check, just looking at your transactions, knowing where your money went, and just staying connected. But I do want to add something very important here. Awareness alone is not enough, okay? Because if you're just looking at your spending without any structure behind it, it's still very easy to overspend. You might think, oh, well, that wasn't too bad today, but you don't actually know unless you're measuring it against something. And I truly believe that something is your budget. Your budget is what gives your spending context. It shows you the full picture, what's coming in, so what your income is, what needs to go out, so your bills and responsibilities, and what's actually available for you to spend. So when you're checking your spending daily, you're not just asking, well, what did I spend? You're asking, does this align with my plan? And that's a completely different level of awareness because now you're not just observing your money, you are directing it. That allows you to interrupt any negative cycles and stop spending on autopilot. And that's where real change starts. So let me just add, if you do not have a budget, you absolutely need one. I create custom budget plans for clients. So if you don't know where to start or if you just want an unbiased party helping you out, I will link to where you can get a custom budget plan from me in the show notes. Okay, moving on to routine number 2, weekly debt check-ins. Now, if you are in the thick of paying off debt, one of the best things you can do is just create a weekly rhythm for checking in and reviewing everything. Otherwise, everything may start feeling reactive. You may think about your debt when you're already stressed out, or you may only make extra payments when you're feeling motivated. That inconsistency makes everything just take longer. Instead, dedicate a set time every week to just check in with your money. Spend this time looking at your debt balances, your debt payments, your debt progress. And the goal is not to judge yourself. The goal is to just stay engaged, to stay on top of it. Keep your finger on the pulse, if you will. Because when you're actively paying attention to your progress, it reinforces the identity of someone who is getting out of debt. You're on top of it, and it keeps you from drifting. This is also where you can adjust. Maybe one week you do put extra money towards your debt. Maybe another week you're just sticking with the plan. But either way, you're in it. You're not avoiding it. And that consistency really builds momentum. The next routine to help you stay focused on paying off debt is pre-deciding your spending. One of the biggest takeaways from my debt journey was realizing that my spending wasn't random. It was purely emotional. I spent because of how it made me feel. And when I really looked at it, a lot of my spending was tied to my identity or tied to an identity I thought I wanted. First, let me just add that I have talked about my debt-free journey on the podcast. I'm going to link to that episode in the show notes in case you want a little bit more context. But again, I was tying my spending to who I thought I needed to be, how I wanted to show up, how I wanted my life to appear to others. I mean, living in LA, being around people who were always out, always doing something, it just felt so normal to spend. It almost felt expected. And I never took the time to just pause and ask if it actually made sense for me financially. Probably because I knew it didn't, right? But I never took the time to do that. And until I addressed that, nothing was going to change. So, one of the routines that helped me the most was pre-deciding my spending, not leaving it up to how I felt in the moment, because when you're in debt, you don't actually have the luxury of fully reactive spending. You do that and end up going deeper into debt. But I do want to be very, very clear about something here. Just because you're in debt does not mean you can't spend any money at all. It does not mean that you have to put your life completely on pause. And it definitely does not mean that you can't do things that make you happy. But you cannot approach your debt-free journey from a place of restriction, okay? Because if you do approach your debt payoff journey from that place of feeling restricted, you are much more likely to burn yourself out. And when you burn yourself out, you go right back to the patterns that got you into debt in the first place. So instead of thinking, well, I just can't spend anything right now, I can't spend anything for the next 6 months, the shift needs to be, I'm going to decide what I can spend and I'm going to feel good about that. And this is where your budget comes in again, because when your spending is planned, you don't have to feel guilty about it. You know you can go to dinner, you know you can do something fun, you know you can enjoy your life, but it's done in moderation. It's done with intention. It's done within the structure you've already created thanks to your budget. And I think that changes just the entire experience, especially because the debt-free journey can be a long one. Now you're not swinging between extremes of overspending and restriction. You are operating in a place of balance, right? And there's a lot of peace in balance. You start asking yourself, is this already part of my plan? And if the spending is, then you proceed and enjoy it. The next routine is creating a why that you revisit often. So, as I mentioned, paying off debt is not a quick process. It's not an overnight journey. And if you are only relying on motivation to keep you going, you will eventually burn out because there will be moments where you feel tired, you feel restricted, something comes up and throws your plan out the window. You question if it's even worth it. And I think that's totally normal. Anybody who's been on that journey, like myself, we know that's normal. But what keeps you going in those moments is your why, right? For me, it became more than just paying off balances. Like it became much more than that. It became about freedom, control, peace, and the understanding that I wanted more from my life. And I got very clear that my debt was not going to help me get there, right? The things that I truly wanted, having this debt holding me back or holding me down, was doing me no favors. And I just knew I didn't want to feel stressed about money anymore. I didn't want to feel like I was constantly playing catch up. I didn't want to feel like half of my paycheck had to go to debt payments, right? And I had to remind myself of that very often, not just once, not just at the beginning, but consistently. And that's why it's so important to have a why, because your why is what reconnects you when you feel like giving up. And we're human. There are going to be times where we feel like giving up. But if you go back to your why, you're going to remember why it's worth powering through, why it's worth pushing on, why it's worth the struggle. It's going to be worth it because your why is worth it. And the final routine to help you stay focused on paying off debt is tracking your progress beyond just balances. Now, when you're paying off debt, it's easy to feel like progress is slow, especially if you have a lot of debt. And that's because you're focused on the number, the balance. And I remember looking at my balances thinking, ugh, this is going to take forever, especially in the beginning when it felt like my payments really weren't making a dent. But what I didn't realize at the time is that I was already changing. I was spending my money differently. I was thinking differently about money. I was catching myself before making certain decisions. And those changes, that's what actually got me out of debt. And sometimes that number doesn't move as quickly as you'd like. Okay, let's just be real, it doesn't. But one of the things that really helped me stay consistent was tracking my progress in other ways. And I think that's such an important part of the debt payoff journey. It's not just, well, how much debt do I have left? It's how consistent am I being? How often am I saying no when I need to? Or how much more aware am I of my spending? Because those things matter. Those are the things that will keep you out of debt. And they are the things that actually create the result you want. Paying off debt isn't just about the math, okay? It's about the behavior behind it. And when you start recognizing that behavior, you just stay more encouraged, you stay more engaged, and you're just more likely to keep going. I was having a conversation with a coaching client the other day, and she was feeling down about not sending as much to her debt payoff plan as she wanted because something unexpected came up. And I had to remind her that not only is paying down balances part of the plan, right? Like the plan is to pay your balances down, but What's also part of the plan is not adding to the debt balances. Okay. So recognize that progress comes in a lot of ways. And I don't want you to lose sight of that. If you can't send as much to debt, but you can cover something that comes up unexpectedly, that is still progress. That means you're not adding to your debt. So just make sure you kind of keep that in mind as you progress on your journey. I want to just end with getting out of debt is not about being perfect. It's about being consistent. It's about building routines that support you, even on the days when you don't feel motivated, because I promise you, motivation will come and motivation will go. But your routines, those are the things that will keep you consistent and keep you moving forward. If you are on a debt payoff journey right now, just know that you're not behind. You are in the process. And the fact that you're even thinking about this means that you're already moving in a different, more positive direction. So stay consistent, stay connected, stay committed to your plan, and just give it time because it will pay off. I promise you. And if you are feeling like you need more structure, you need more support, more accountability, more clarity on what your plan should look like, that's exactly what we cover in my money coaching program. We take your current situation and create a plan that actually works for your life. So you're not starting over and you're not trying to figure it out all on your own. If that's something that you're ready for, you can request a free money call with me. I will link to it in the show notes.